I will tell you that Parliament is superior to the executive in trying to locate sovereignty. Because not all of us voted for President Akufo-Addo. But every Ghanaian is represented on the floor of Parliament. And so Parliament essentially represents the people. Whereas when it comes to president, it's only a section, 50% plus one, who elected the president. And so, if the president decides, if Parliament decides that it would work against the president, then president may not be able to stand it, especially if it's a hung Parliament. Now you've also lost one of your members of Parliament. If they decide to fight against you, it is going to be difficult for the executive president. And I am surprised that up till now, you see, we are used to winning elections and dominating on the floor of Parliament. That's what the executive presidents over the years have been used. So it appears it's being difficult for President Akufo-Addo to appreciate what time is it. It is not the kind of Parliament that can be always relied upon to rubber stamp your decision, but especially if you have a Speaker of Parliament who doesn't come from your party and you have a hung Parliament. You cannot bulldoze. Yes, sometimes because the executive control resources, you can be able to use resources to influence and to circumvent processes and to do all manner of things to keep Parliament in line. But if a hung Parliament, it gets to a point in time and they say that, look, this is what we have all decided on. We want you to append your signature. If you decide to want
so that bill was bipartisan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was super bipartisan. Yes. Okay, so if you get a president who wants to swim against the tide, and a president who wants to mortgage our humanity and cultural values just for $3 billion, you see, we are who we are because of the values and what we believe in. Okay, we are who we are because of the values and what we believe in. And so Parliament sat down to decide. And this is not the first time. Mr. President, I think that, you see, disregarding the general will, the hopes and aspirations of Ghanaians, simply because one is exiting from power, should make it difficult for the MPP to go campaign in the coming election, especially when the very people you are going to seek their mandates, the same people are having their general will being undermined by the president. You see, we may have we may have differences, but you see this LGBT thing and the pushing about it, you can see that virtually the generality of the Ghanaian populace are against it. And these are the people who have spoken through their members of Parliament. How do you try to undermine the general will of the people at a time when your party is also out there trying to appeal to this generality, the general conscience or the general populace, to give them the mandate to be able to break the eight? It is going to be difficult. I don't see how, and I don't know whether people within the MPP are thinking about this. This is a general will of the people. You are going to be appealing to the general population to give you another mandate. Now you have a president who is exiting, and because he's leaving, he doesn't care. So he's running contrary to the general will of the people. Yet you want to appeal to the same people. I think that if they are bold people within the MPP, they must begin to think about how they will be able to rescue their party from the claws of the exiting Akufo-Addo. Again, as a nation, we must find a way. We must think about legislating against what I call presidential debt gootism. Presidential debt gootism. When the president is exiting and he doesn't care about anything, and so he decides to throw cautions to the wind. He decides that, look, I can mortgage your values and your traditions and your belief system for 3 billion. How do we treat that president? We should have a legislation.
And the Constitution provides for impeachment.
Well, the Constitution provides for impeachment process, but sometimes it becomes difficult because you don't have that kind. You are not sure whether you will be able to marshal, support from Parliament. Like I said,
process.
They would gossip to you behind the scenes, but publicly, that is who we are. And so you see, I call on the churches, I call on civil society organizations, identifiable groups, to begin to speak against the attempt by the exiting president to torpedo the general will of the people. I disagree respectfully with those who are speaking in support of the presidential hypocrisy and insincerity in attempting to show a certain respect for judicial independence and judicial autonomy. Suddenly the president is telling Ghanaians that, look, I have a lot of respect for judicial independence, and so if a matter is sub judice, if a matter is before somebody has taken a matter to the court, I'm not willing to act on. But this president has acted on matters that are in court before. And so I see the show of a certain respect for judicial independence and judicial autonomy as insincere and hypocrisy. And then again, matters before the courts, in my view, should not immobilize the president and make him ineffective in implementing a decision taken by the generality of the citizenry. Because there is something before the court, all of a sudden, we should wait. And we know how sometimes the court processes can drag. And so if a president has to take a decision, somebody tells you that, look, it is before court. And so all of us, we should be in limbo. In political science, we teach what we call judicial review. What is the essence of judicial review? It's the power given to the courts to take a second look at laws made by Parliament or actions of the executive to declare them ultra vires, null and void, unconstitutional or illegal. After the action has taken place, the concept of judicial review empowers the judges to look at it again and say, hey, maybe he who is cutting the path does not know his back is crooked. This particular legislation is unconstitutional. This action of the president is null and void, or it violates the constitution, is ultra vires or something. So they are there. So for me, for a president to say, no, I'm not going to act. I'm not going to act. I'm going to wait till Parliament, the matter is decided by the courts. How about if it delays in perpetuity? As we know, matters have been there and they have delayed. It creates an impression that the president is trying to outsmart the people of Ghana. But Mr. President, we have seen through what you are doing. You want to hide behind the processes to circumvent and to undermine the expression of the general will of the people, simply because you are exiting and you don't care. Posterity will judge you. Now let's talk about the judges in this case. You see, oftentimes when it comes to the judiciary, yes, we are overly cautious, and the lawyers here would always be frightening us and saying all manner of things. But you see, yeah, we have a history. I don't want to remind us. We have a history of judges doing their work, professional work, and yet being abducted and killed. It's happened in Ghana before. Judges, they were doing their work. They were not doing anything illegal. But the legal work that they are doing, the professional work that they were doing, others interpreted their work as being in contrast with the expression of the general will of the people. And so they were abducted and they were gruesomely murdered. It appears that the whole country, we have decided that this should never happen again. And I believe in that kind of resolve, that never should it happen again, that judges will be doing their work And some people will say, well, what we are doing is not, does not reflect the general will of the people, and so then we want to deal with you in a particular way. It should never happen. But our resolve not to repeat the dastard past should not be licentious for judicial tyranny and judicial unaccountability. We don't want to go back to the past. But it doesn't mean that judges should be untouchable, they should not be accountable. It doesn't mean we should license judicial tyranny. Yes, Godfrey Dami may have applied for expedited judgment on this matter. And so, in business management, there was LIFO, last in, first out. Okay. Now, in trying to grant this last in, first out thing, the judges should have known that certainly this will create a certain perception of bias in the psyche of the teeming people who are ignorant. How many people know that there can be last in, first out? You can write, and the judge would decide that, look, let me hear this matter first, even though we've had one and it's lying down. You see, you create a certain perception in the psyche of the people that you are being biased.
Even though that perception is not grounded in law.
Sometimes it's perception that caused. I mean, so when the judges were abducted, it was perception in the minds of some people that they were not doing things in line with the general will of the people. And so my argument is that if there is judicial accountability, the application of the law by judges must be done such a way that it also respects the moods and sensibilities of the people. I undertook a course called Judicial Politics in the US, and I remember Professor Kent Putney narrating a certain attitude of a US Supreme Court to us. He said that judge always wants to be with the law. He always wants to be with the law. All that he does is that, look, he speaks, he eats the law. And so because of that, this judge, he lives very far away from people. Okay? He does not read newspapers. He doesn't watch television. He doesn't listen to news. Why? He doesn't want what is happening within society to influence him. But in that course, Professor Ketney and the whole class, they criticized the judge because they said that it is the role of the judiciary must always not be confined to law, but you must also be mindful of public policy. You must also be mindful of public mood and sensibility. We are not saying that let that overly sway you, but you should find a certain nice balance between the application of law in a manner that respects the mood and sensibilities, of the people. And so we argued that rigid application of laws without thinking about public mood and sensibilities is a threat to judicial independence and also ushers people sitting as judges into a regime of robots. We must be able to apply the laws. We must be able to respect the judicial processes. But in doing so, I call on judges to also be mindful of the perception that they are building about themselves. Okay, because look, you would appreciate the role of the judiciary and their importance when you cast your mind back to our 2013 election petition process. It was the judges, it was the judiciary that held the fort, that kept us together. And so I am not interested in doing anything, and I'm not interested in supporting anybody in saying things that undermines the image of the judges. But at the same time, they also have a responsibility to do things that would protect the institution that they work in. They have a responsibility to offer judgments that respects the moods and sensibilities of the people, so that they would deliberately be doing things to cut or to reduce the negative perceptions of bias, against them. If they decide that, look, as for us, we do not care about what the public says. Sometimes you hear the judges, you hear some of the lawyers say it's not about what you think, it's not about what you know, it's just about law. I'm saying that if you are always talking about law, and then you are disregarding, you are behaving as if you do not live in a society, and so you don't care about the moods and sensibilities of the people, then you are what your conduct itself will remain an affront to the quest to shore up judicial independence, because it will be in the psyche of people that you are biased. The more people think you are biased, the more
then you are.
The more you become, and then the more there is an affront to the notion of judicial independence. And so we appeal to the judges that now Thaddeus Osori has also written for an expedited hearing of the other case. And as Mahama Ayariga said, we are all watching. Okay, so let the judges do their work and let them deliberately also be out there ensuring that they are trying to deal with the negative perception, public perception of bias. You know, people name them unanimous FC and all that. I'm not for those kinds of naming, but they should deliberately also be seen to be doing things to be addressing this kind of bias that people have, you know, about them. But the key matter here under discussion, or the key issue here that attention must be drawn on, is the fact that what is going on now in this Dafia Makpo case, and the judges throwing the matter interlocutory injunction out and order, is all about a struggle between the executive arm of government and the legislative arm of government. And I'm saying that in trying to locate who is who, in trying to locate sovereignty, Parliament is superior to the executive arm of government. And if you get a hung parliament, and the hung parliament decides to frustrate the executive arm of government, it is governance that will suffer. Akufo-Addo has a nation to govern. And so it is more, the responsibility lie more with him to be able to act in a manner that shows cooperation with the legislative arm of government. As for Parliament, if they decide as for a hung Parliament, if he decides to frustrate the executive, I mean, we would all suffer. Okay. But you ask yourself, now who caused them? Why should we have an executive president who is touted as a constitutional lawyer, a human rights activist, and who, when it comes to democracy, people see him as a guru, suddenly refusing to assent to bills? You will not sign a bill, but you will also not resort to the processes, the legitimate or legally provided processes that should guide his attempt not to sign a bill. If you do that, you are frustrating the people of Ghana. And I'm saying that we should begin to legislate against this this show of presidential death goatism. Okay, you are death goat, you are going. As for me, I'm 80 years, I am going. I don't care. I can do whatever I want to do. If you do that, like I said, posterity will judge you. And then secondly, you people in the MPP must be thinking, the bold and courageous ones. It's not about meeting some of us and gossiping about it behind the scenes. The president will hire you. The president is worrying us. You should be men enough in looking into the president's face and say, Mr. President, you are leaving, but we are campaigning to break an 8. There should be a movement, movement to rescue the party from the claws and the shackles of the exiting president Akufo-Addo. Otherwise, they would be laughing at the wrong side of their mouth come 2024.
Well, let me go on to the telephone quickly. Yes, Bobby Banson is joining us. He is a lecturer at the Ghana School of Law, a private legal practitioner. Counsel, good morning.
Good morning, Alfred. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And a quick one. Now, it's been established that indeed it's not legally mandatory for the Attorney General, in this case of Nelson Roxy Dafia, to have notified the other party, because this was not an application for an expedited hearing. It was more of an administrative procedure or option which is acceptable that the Attorney General used. But if there is a notice on the application, which I have a copy of, that's Nelson Ross Indafiam's application, that the date will be fixed 14 days after service of the said applications on the respondents to the application. There will be fixed after 14 days, written on that notice, is a condition precedent on the time. Am I right? If that's the case, if the Attorney General wants to fix before, or a date fixed before 14 days, does that require an abridgment?
Good morning. I think that it's good that we understand that there are two regimes here. There is the administrative regime and there is the judicial regime, properly so-called. Now, the Chief Justice is head of both in the context of the judicial service. She's the administrative head, and for lack of a better word, she's also the judicial head of the judicial service. She can exercise administrative functions, and then she can also exercise judicial functions. Now, the letter that you read, which has now become the norm, that when you file an application, the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, unlike what you were used to, a date is not fixed by the registrar immediately. You receive a notice that a date to be fixed to be communicated to you. That notice is for all parties to be aware of. And more so in the Supreme Court, they come immediately with it. Now, you said the date will be fixed after 14 days. Now, when the registrar serves the parties with those notices, any of the parties who thinks that there is a sense of urgency with the case may write to the Chief Justice. Because you see, with the Supreme Court, I think the bench must be empaneled before the registrar will be notified to fix the date. It is the Chief Justice that has the empanelment, that person. So it is just out of the 13 or so judges there are at the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice may decide that with this interlocutory application, for instance, I will let only a single judge sit on it, or I will let 5 judges sit on it. Now, when the Chief Justice has made that administrative decision, then it will be communicated to the registrar of the court. Then the registrar of the court will now fix the date. That will now be, all the parties will be aware. Now, before that, any party may write a letter to the Chief Justice asking that due to the urgency, due to ABCD, can you hasten the process of empaneling the bench, and then the registrar will subsequently fix a date. If that party writes that letter, I think that it's only fair that all the parties to the suit are notified, even though it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory, so that the parties are notified. When the Chief Justice, or if the Chief Justice decides to respond to that letter, in a case that I was involved in, even though I was not copied in the letter to the CJ asking for the expeditious trial, the response I was copied, because then I'll be affected by that administrative decision. So that, in my experience, has been the practice so far. If a party decides that I want to file an application for abridgment of time, that can only be done if a date has been fixed by the registrar upon the instructions of the Chief Justice in the context of the Supreme Court practice. So if a date has been fixed and you want the matter to be heard earlier than the date fixed, then you must file an application or notice to all the parties explaining why you think the time should be abridged to be moved forward so that the case will be heard earlier than what the course list of the Supreme Court says. So if it is not an application for abridgment of time, and it is an application for abridgment of time, you are now invoking the judicial authority of the bench, of the Supreme Court, and not the administrative authority of the Chief Justice. So when you file the application for abridgment of time, that motion will be placed before a bench. It could be a single justice or 5 justices. They may be the justices that will hear the substantive application for interlocutory injunction, as it were, or they may not be. So those are the procedures and the practice from my experience.
I see. So it essentially means that this 14 days rule is fairly new in our jurisprudence, correct?
I started seeing it when this Chief Justice took over. That when you file, they don't give you the date immediately. It's been something that, I mean, it's of recent, but I don't know whether it was before, in the years before I joined the bar, but I started seeing it often, let me put it that way, that when you file, you don't get the date immediately. Hitherto, the registrar will fix the date for you when you file, based on the cost list, the schedule that they have.
I see. And taking that into consideration, that generally this is fairly new, is it the case that an expedited hearing can be granted without necessarily appearing before a party, let's say a panel of judges or a judge for that matter, in this administrative process that the Attorney General employed?
Yes, with the administrative process, you are appealing to the discretion of the Chief Justice as the administrative head. That discretion could be exercised according to what she thinks best suits the human resource strength, let me put it that way. But we all know Article 296, exercise of discretion cannot be done in a whimsical manner or capricious or arbitrary. And so there must be some guiding principles, and you should be able to set out what could be a standard for the exercise of that discretion. We have seen a bench at the Supreme Court being asked to sit during vacations to expedite proceedings because for the rules of court, ordinarily they will not be sitting during vacations. We've seen cases now where the Chief Justice has ordered, exercising her administrative powers, that a judge sits on a particular case every day or every other day until the matter is determined. So it's purely administrative based on what the Chief Justice thinks the justice of the case demands at that time.
I see. So this is subject to the discretion of the Chief Justice. So in the case of this application by Tadiosori that, look, the letter by Tadiosori, yes, that this same principle or this same discretion that the Chief Justice applied in having the Dafempo case heard earlier, that same discretion should be applied in hearing the Richard Sky and Dr. Amanda Odoe cases, the interlocutory injunctions against the anti-LGBTQ plus bill. That discretion is solely to be determined by the Chief Justice, if so minded.
Yes, but Alfred, Senior Sori's letter was not addressed to the Chief Justice. I don't know if you have a copy with you there.
We have.
I don't know whether the Chief Justice was copied or it was addressed to her. You can correct. I don't have access to it now.
Okay.
And I have not seen the letter written by the Attorney General. But he has said that he wrote a letter to the Chief Justice. But this letter from Senior Sori is addressed to the registrar. I don't know if the registrar or if the Chief Justice would reply or would ask, because the letter is not addressed to her. Unless the registrar takes the letter to her, and then she can decide to respond to it. But the letter is not addressed to her. It's addressed to the registrar of the court. And I think the registrar of the court may not be able to fix a date unless he's informed by the Chief Justice that the judges or the bench has been empaneled. And so somebody will say maybe it's an issue of internal administrative procedures, which one comes first. Whether the registrar will have to fix the date and inform the Chief Justice for the Chief Justice to empanel the bench, or the Chief Justice will empanel the bench, inform the registrar, then the registrar will communicate the dates that will suit the schedule of the court to the parties. So if since the letter was not addressed to the Chief Justice, and I don't think it was the registrar that exercised the discretion, as it were, to have the Honorable Dafia case called earlier, I think that it may have been an instruction from the Chief Justice after the Chief Justice had empaneled the bench. So I don't know if the registrar of the court would have that discretion to exercise, because if you look at Article 125, I think 4 or so, the administrative function is in the Chief Justice, not the registrar. It's in the Chief Justice, except that we all know that the registrar would work on the instruction of of the Chief Justice.
Even though the registrar is also clothed with the responsibility of scheduling of cases?
No. Yes, but like I'm saying, there must be an empanelment first, I think, from the immediate new structure before, and the empanelment is done by the Chief Justice. So if the CJ says that I have not empaneled the bench yet, then I don't see how the registrar will fix the bench. Right.
So this letter, if it has to get the attention or invoke the discretionary powers of the Chief Justice, should have been addressed to the Chief Justice and not the registrar of the courts?
Personally, I would have said yes, but I don't think that addressing it to the registrar would, as well as would be fatal. The registrar, if he cannot, or she, does not have that jurisdiction, as it were, would simply have to refer the letter to the Chief Justice for her action. I don't think that's, it makes any much of a difference.
I see. But then you make the point that, yes, it's just only fair. It would have been only fair and not legally mandatory that in even an administrative application or an administrative letter to have an expedited hearing, all parties should be in the know. That's one of the issues that came up because Nelson Roxy Dafiam, of course, lawyers were not in court because they said that they had not been served. But the court,
with the hearing notice.
Yes.
For the day.
For the day. The bailiff.
Well, it would have been strange.
The bailiff was called, in fact, and asked to give an explanation in court, and he did indicate that he went to the offices of Nikpako Samuado and left the service at the reception, and Nikpako, according to the bailiff, is alleged to have instructed his staff not to take it. That narration, Nikpako vehemently opposed that it is not true. He did not give any instruction and detailed exactly what happened when I spoke to him earlier in the week. I want to just kindly take a listen to this and find out whether all of that, what happened, would practically and legally constitute a service, for which reason Nikpako Samado and his team of lawyers representing Nelson Roxy Dafiam were not in court. Take a listen.
That with his lawyer, Nikpako Samuel Ado, were both
back in the days, if you file an application in the Supreme Court of Ghana, it takes you even 3 months for you to have a date for hearing. It is only after a party has made an application for an expeditious determination of the process that the matter will come up for hearing. And indeed, in the record, we show that this particular case.
And we'll try to bring that back to you. Essentially, counsel, forgive me, but let's take a listen to him, please.
He applied for an expedited trial on this matter. Now, were you notified at any point of this application for expedited hearing on this case?
Well, we never served with any formal application for expedited hearing. So maybe he might have written a letter to request for the matter to be set down for an expedited hearing, which is also another form of an application. So he could write to the registrar and say that, well, I have this matter, I have filed my processes, I want the matter to be set down for hearing, without recourse to a formal application. What we are mostly used to is a motion or notice for an abridged hearing. But if he went by letter, because we were never served with a motion, so I suspect he might have gone by letter.
I see. Well, it could actually be the case because it was revealed today, as per the account of my colleague in court, that you, the lawyers for Nelson Roxy Dafiam, did not accept some court documents, including, let me just finish up, including the notice of hearing and the Attorney General's opposition to this temporary court order, because according to the bailiff, he indicated that you had instructed one of your staff at your chambers not to accept any document.
That is completely false. Now, this bailiff called me in the morning. Let me be exact with the time. He called me at exactly, let me just give me a second. I want to get the time exactly right. Okay, so he called me at exactly 10:50 a.m. yesterday. At that time, I was not in my class. So what did I do? I sent him the number of Mr. Roxon and said, call Mr. Roxon and ensure that you serve him with whatever process you have. He received the message at 10:57 a.m., acknowledged and said, received with thanks. That was the last I heard of the third day. Now he walked into my office and he doesn't know that my office has a CCTV system with an audio system. So I have released the CCTV recording of his entire period within our office setup, including the voice audio, for you to listen to exactly the interaction between himself and my front desk. And it was very simple. He came in and said he identified himself as a bailiff with the process. When he removed the process, he put it on the table. And my front desk people told him that, oh, they've seen my name on it. He should wait for me to come because I was not in the office at the particular time. Then he said he had left the process on the table and told them that he was making a phone call and was going to return because nobody had signed for the process. If you come and serve us, you have to sign for it. And if my name was on the process, then my clerk said, okay, wait and let me come and sign for it. He left the process there and never came back. Even though he had told them he was making a phone call and was coming back.
I see, but...
And so how do you go and tell, well, I would go to court and say that I had instructed my front desk people not to receive the process. And they say that, and he quoted me that I have said that, I have told my front desk to say that.
In fact, that's what was said. He quoted you.
So I have released the CCTV footage and the audio on it because he didn't.
He refers to that we've been playing on the screen, and so, counsel, that's the position of Nick Baposamoado, lawyer for Nelson Roxon Dafuamepo, on why he was not in court. He was not served with this notice, this letter that was administratively triggered by the Attorney General for this expedited hearing, for that matter, and that's why he was not in court. Bailiff goes to his office and leaves the service there, even though his name is on it. He said he was going to make a call, never came back. Does all of that constitute service?
Well, Alfred, I have not watched the CCTV footage or the voice accompanying it, as he has said, but I'll speak generally to the service. With the Supreme Court, they can serve you, give you 1 day notice, 2 day notice. This is the highest court of Ghana. So when they serve, as long as there's proof of service on their docket, they would seem to proceed. Now, whether you can serve a lawyer through the front desk at the lawyer's office, the courts have made that very clear, that even if it is your name as the lawyer of the process, service at your front desk or in your law firm, not outside, in your law firm, constitutes proper service. If that is the address for service you have provided. So if the bailiff goes to your office, they need not meet a particular lawyer before they give the service on that, or they leave the service on that, or they serve that lawyer to constitute proper service. So if I leave my address as counsel for the applicant, Alfred Ocansey, whose address for service is Adisawe Kanda, if the bailiff goes to Adisawe Kanda and sees maybe an officer inside and then leaves the process, the court has said that it is deemed to be proper service. Once it is the law firm, I'm speaking specifically about law firms. Okay, so the lawyer need not be the one that will be given the process to constitute proper service. Now, if when the bailiff goes, or when the bailiff got there, for some reason the person there says, I'm not qualified to receive this process, and so wait for an appropriate officer to receive it, I believe that the bailiff ought to write in their process affidavit of service, as it were, that I was there on this day, this person said it's not proper to receive it. And so then the courts may make the necessary orders or the party who is directing the service, for lack of a better word, would take the necessary steps. Now, if indeed, lawyer for Honorable Dafiamato is saying that there was no proper service, the door is not shut. Even though it's a ruling by the Supreme Court, it's an ordinary bench ruling. They're entitled to go and review. And I'm sure that if they're able to demonstrate that they were not served with a hearing notice, as the bailiff had alleged in his affidavit of service, I believe that the Supreme Court, in the review jurisdiction, may take the necessary steps. Because natural justice is a key component of invoking the jurisdiction of the court. And so if the court delivers a ruling and the party says that I was not given notice of that ruling, despite what the bailiff had said, the court will now take a second look at that ruling they give. And if what the applicant for the review is saying is found to be factual, they may set aside that ruling and any subsequent proceedings. So I believe that if the lawyers for Honorable Dafiamato are very strongly opinionated that indeed they were not served, the door is not shut. They should take the necessary steps and apply review on that basis that there was a breach of the rules of natural justice, so that we all see that they are serious about the fact that they were not served. Then it will develop the frontiers of the law. We all learn from it.
Indeed. Counsel, I do appreciate your analysis and expertise on this matter, as always. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Alfred. Okay. Right.
Bobby Bansing is a lecturer at the Ghana School of Law and a private legal practitioner as well, joining us on this matter. So yes, I mean, before that, Lawyer Amako Abuedu, you want to do just a quick one?
Yes.
A quick interrupt.
There's a quick one,
yes.
In reaction to a few of the matters raised here. I want to draw our attention to the writ filed by Richard Sky on the 5th of March 2024, and look at the reliefs. Relief V says, an order restraining the Speaker and the Clerk from presenting the bill to the President. And so when we are talking about the President doesn't want it to be sent to him, let's make reference to what was contained in the relief. If that is in the relief and there's an injunction being sought for that, then we cannot blame the President by saying that don't send it, because we have to respect the court. And we cannot say that because at the previous time, perchance actions were taken that did not respect the jurisdiction and the authority of the court, and therefore that must be the sine qua non, what must be done throughout. Let us respect, you see. And then another comment being made here is as if MPP doesn't know the import of this. MPP knows the import of this.
Import of what?
The import of the Richard Delasky,
Dr. Amanda
Odoi. And the fundamental issue is this bill that has been passed by Parliament, by both parties, by everyone. The Christian community has spoken about it. The Islamic, how do you call that? The Muslim community has spoken about that. The traditional authorities have spoken about. Everyone is against this act. It is not that the President went to say that, please take this to court. No, let us respect. So the most important thing that has happened is Tadio Sori's, my senior Tadio Sori's letter to the judiciary. We can talk about whether it was sent to the CJ or the registrar. I think I hadn't even looked at it properly till my learned friend Boy Banson addressed that issue.
It's actually addressed to the
registrar. And I have a copy here. Yes. And so and if you look at the copies, and you couldn't have written it to the registrar and now address it. A copy same to it means that he's not supposed to act on it. So probably another one can be sent, but that is the most important thing, because we need to jump this hurdle. Nobody, I don't know anyone who has visibly come out to say that I'm in support of the act, even those who came to brought this matter to court, are saying that certain parts of it they think are problematic. I think it stands to reason that we look at those. But the fact that someone is saying, let's change some bits, let's look at some bits, doesn't mean that he's even in favor of the practice. This is so no one is in favor of this practice. Not that it is lost on MPP and that when they go for elections, no, this is not lost on MPP.
Anyway,
this thing,
you are responding to what Prof.
This thing is that all of us, including us here on this panel, do not want this lifestyle.
Okay.
It is not a human rights matter. He said that we need to jump this hurdle. The earlier we jump this hurdle, the better. Then we progress with that.
All right. But you see, it's just like saying that I'm going to court to I'm seeking a relief from the Supreme Court against the president, saying that henceforth the president should be prevented from holding himself as president of the republic. And that is about to be determined.
Wait. Because
of that, the president shouldn't act because I am seeking a relief to prevent him from holding himself as president of the republic. I think that will be stretching it. That will be. I don't want to use the word and absurdity, but I'm not using it. But the point is that the point is that the fact that somebody is seeking that relief does not mean the whole nation should.
Let me read this to you, okay, in support of what you are saying. That's what I was trying to get up with.
Yes,
so and when it comes to Chieftaincy Act,
will do a very quick one, and then
when it comes to Chieftaincy Act,
I have submission.
Yes.
If a person is about to, so Section 62, the installation, disposition, abdication, death, and all that. Despite any provision in this act, an installation of the chief or criminal is not valid unless at least 14 days before the date of installation, public notice given. For the purpose of this section, an interim judgment shall not be granted on application within 7 days of the 14 days. So you see, because power, there cannot be a vacuum in power. So if you are even challenging the installation of a chief, they are saying that you have to do so within a certain time. If you breach that, the chief they can go ahead and install it. So if we all of us envisage that, we don't want applications to certify the power, the executive power of the president. It's about us going to the constitution to say that, as for this, because you see, remember, no, it's not the president. No,
he's a lawyer.
You see, it is a fact that it is not. It is in the same constitution, Article 2, that says that if the president breaches an order of the court, he's subject to be impeached. So if we see a lacuna, let us.
An order has not been given.
Okay,
once it is said, then stop.
Okay, thank you. I need just because you wanted to make a quick input on this position or the advice of the Attorney General to the President because of that relief that lawyer Amako Boedu read. Says, don't bring this to me at all. This anti-LGBTQ plus bill.
One was so not seasoned.
Hold on. Thank you. Mama Elga. No. Hold on. Oh, gentlemen. Thank you.
What do you mean by seasoned?
Thank you. Mama Elga.
Can I get you?
Yes.
Arrogance.
I disagree with you.
Seasoned.
Hold on. Let's all have one person speaking. It's fine. Let's all have one person. Thank you.
Can I?
Let's have some discipline.
Can I have?
Yes.
No, but they are talking. I won't do any law.
For example, yes. Thank you.
There are two issues that There are two issues. Excuse me. There are two issues that I want us to have clarity on. One, the application to the court and the reliefs sought by Richard Sky are captured here, and there are two. An order of interlocutory injunction to restrain the Speaker and the Clerk to Parliament of Ghana from presenting to the President for his assent through the Attorney General from assenting to the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill passed by the Parliament of Ghana on 28th February 2024, pending the final determination of the suit. So he's seeking to restrain Parliament from presenting the bill.
Yes.
But that's a relief aimed at the Speaker, not the President. Okay? Then the second one is to the President. An order directed at the President from giving his assent to the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2024, passed by the Parliament of Ghana. So he's seeking to restrain Parliament from presenting the bill to the President. Then he's seeking to restrain the President from assenting to the bill. He has not sought any order to restrain the President from receiving the bill. He has not.
Oh, but you just read
No. That order is aimed at the Speaker. Read it carefully. It says, an order of interlocutory injunction to restrain the Speaker and the Clerk of Parliament from presenting to the President. If they choose to go ahead and present it to the President, that becomes their legal problem. The President is not restrained by the relief being sought by Richard Sky from receiving. Do you get it? Now, the Secretary to the President writes his cease and desist letter. And he says this, and let's read it carefully. He says that the Attorney General has, by letter dated 18th March 2024, informed the President that he has been duly served with both applications and has advised the President not to take any steps in relation to the bill until the matters raised by the suits are determined by the Supreme Court. It is the understanding of this office that both applications have been duly served on Parliament. Therefore, it would be improper for you to transmit the bill to the President, and equally improper for this office to receive the bill. That's where he's wrong. It may be improper for the Parliament, pending the issues of the application, to transmit it, but that's a matter for them to decide whether they want to be in contempt. But it is not improper for the President to receive it, because nobody has sought an order to restrain him from receiving it. The only order that has been sought is to restrain him from giving his assent. But because, in my opinion, my candid opinion, the whole writ was contrived to give the President a cover not to receive it, even though there's no order in relation to him not receiving it. He just jumped at the writ and said, hey, I don't want to receive it because there's a matter in the court. So clearly, it is wrong. But that is even not for me the only issue. There's an even more, listen, there's an even more fundamental issue. Let me finish.
Gentlemen,
please.
Thank you.
There's an even more fundamental issue here, which has not, in my opinion, in all the discussions that I've had, been canvassed. Therefore, let me continue the quotation. Therefore, it will be improper for you to transmit the bill to the President, and equally improper for this office to receive the bill until the Supreme Court determines the matters raised in the suits. Indeed, it is settled law that during the pendency of an interlocutory injunction application, the status quo ante ought to be preserved, and no action should be taken that will result in prejudicing the injunctive relief sought and determining the authority and undermining the authority of the court. In the circumstances, you are kindly requested to cease and desist from transmitting the bill to the President until the matters before the Supreme Court are resolved. This is equally palpably wrong. Do you know why? The same Supreme Court, in the interlocutory application by Amanda Odoi, Amanda Odoi, in her interlocutory application to the court said this, and pay attention. The court said, we have considered the merits of this application before us. It is our considered opinion that a prima facie case has not been made to convince us to restrain the work, listen carefully, to restrain the work of Parliament in its uncompleted form. To restrain the work of Parliament in its uncompleted form, uncompleted form of what? The passage of legislation. So the Attorney General ought to have advised himself as to what is the completed form of legislation. The completed form of legislation is when it is initiated in Parliament, goes through first, second, third reading, after consideration, gets voted by parliamentarians, is transmitted to the President considers it, either assents to it or refuses to assent to it, sends it to Council of State for advice, takes the advice of the Council of State and the opinion of the President and his recommendation, sends it back to Parliament. Parliament considers or reconsiders its provisions in addition to the views of the President and the Council of States, and either passes it by 2/3 majority or not. That is the completed form of the passage of legislation. So the Supreme Court has already indicated that in the entire process of the passage of legislation, we will not interfere. So it is wrong for the Attorney General to have been said to have advised the President that he should not assent to the bill. When the court has already said that, we don't want to even interfere. So even if somebody has brought an application to us, we don't want to interfere, go ahead, go through the entire process. So the entire process includes the President saying that I disagree with you, I'm sending it back to you, go through reconsideration, mobilize your 2/3. If you succeed in passing it, you bring it and I assent. That is the entire form. And the Supreme Court has already pronounced on that matter. So it is wrong for the Attorney General to ever advise the President that he should not go through the processes. One, either say I disagree with you and send it back, or two, say, you know, I'm signing, because when he signed, it is still part of the process. So he hasn't violated any rule, he hasn't undermined the judiciary, he hasn't violated the decision in Amanda Ode, and in fact he has complied with it when he goes ahead to either assent or refuse and communicate it back. So the Attorney General was wrong. In fact, I am shocked and scandalized by the advice of the Attorney General in this instance. That's what I want to highlight this morning in this discussion. So I disagree with what has happened. The second issue that I think we need to understand is that I have an issue with the Supreme Court ruling in this interlocutory application of the Fiamakpo. I may have some reservations about the righteousness or not of the letter that has been written, okay? But what is the substance of the Fiamakpo's case? The Fiamakpo is relying on Article 81 of the Constitution. What does 81 say? It says that the office of a Minister of State or a Deputy Minister of State shall become vacant if his appointment is revoked by the President. The President writes to Parliament, lists people and says, I have revoked these people's appointments. First,
can I caution you?
First,
you are almost determining the matter.
No, we can discuss it. No, we can discuss it. No, we can discuss it.
Let me even state that we are mindful of the subjudicate, and so we are mindful of our timelines and then also the boundaries in the conversation of this case. So yes, we are not really determining the case on this platform, but we are discussing it within the boundaries that we are allowed to.
We can discuss the facts.
Yes,
the facts are public record.
Yes, indeed.
The communication was read to me.
Yes, I just needed to state that.
The communication first said that these appointments have been revoked. Then after saying these appointments have been revoked, then below, so I have reassigned them to X, Y, Z. Then the Fiamakpo said, but you've already revoked the appointments. So if you have revoked the appointments under Article 81, where are they to be reassigned? This is the case.
Go through the process.
Yes, this is the case before the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court says that, don't worry, you go ahead and do whatever you have to. I won't grant an application for interim injunction. That is so. I don't think that we should relate the substance and nature of the Femivo's case in relation to Richard Sky's case. Because in Richard Sky's case, so far as I'm concerned, in the Amanda Odai rejection of interlocutory application, the court has already ruled that whoever is a participant in the entire process of the lawmaking should continue with their responsibilities and not be restrained, including the president. So for the Attorney General to advise him against giving his assent and not advise him to take the steps dictated in the form is woefully wrong, and I feel scandalized by it. Then on this, you see, I take a position personally that there's no specific rule that says that when you write to the Chief Justice,
notify
to seek an early hearing of a matter, that you must necessarily copy. But I have said here that it is only proper for you to copy
on the platform of fairness.
Yes, on the platform of fairness and also just administrative prudence. I also agree that when the Chief Justice is responding to you, because there's a third party involved, is that okay? That the Chief Justice notifies the third party, copies the third party, so the third party is aware. I heard somebody said, and I think I 100% agree with that administrative.
That's what Biban said.
Yes, his position, and I think that it was administratively, not the best that the Chief Justice did not copy, the other party when responding to the lawyers applying for an early hearing. But the reason why the Chief Justice ought to inform the other party is that if you read the notice to, let's say, the former course lawyers, what does it say? It says that, let me read it, that is fixing of date for hearing of application generally. It says, please take notice that a date will be fixed for hearing of the above stated application with hearing notices for the respondents by the registrar upon request, 14 days after service of the application on the respondent. 14 days.
14 days.
So when you send an applicant this notice, that applicant legitimately will expect that he has 14 days. Okay? After the service on the respondent. So there is a legitimate expectation that I have this time frame within which to work. If you then decide to go ahead and then have the hearing much earlier, I think that administrative prudence will require that they be given adequate notice. And I heard the lawyers indicate that they have issues with the service, and they actually indicate that the bailiff lied to the court. Bailiff lied to the court. So I believe that in a matter like this, given the political nature of this case, the Chief Justice should cause an investigation of the conduct of the bailiff.
At least on the face of the CCTV video we have just shown.
So that we're all clear as to exactly what happened. Because like Prof has said, this is a matter that deals with the reputation of the judiciary. Already, NDC has issued a statement questioning why this matter came before this other matter, and yet you are choosing to hear the one that came, after the first one. So it is important for the image of the judiciary for them to be interested in whether or not, because I heard the lawyers on radio say that the bailiff lied and that they have CCTV cameras, and they've shared the CCTV cameras. You've shown it. I watched it. You've shown it. So, in the light of this, I believe that the Judicial Secretary and the Chief Justice should be interested in investigating the conduct of the bailiff to see whether he misled them into refusing to give an opportunity to the applicants to be heard, because it's a rule of natural justice that the party should be heard. And that is why I decided to go to the substance of the Kwemofos case. Because I believe that if they had heard him, they would have seen that first, Parliament is on recess anyway. Are you getting the situation?
Indeed.
And secondly, really, he's not really talking about the process in Parliament, essentially. He's talking about the conduct of the president, even before coming to Parliament. Yeah. First announcing revocation, and then purporting to announce reassignment. So it's not the same thing. It's not a process in Parliament. Okay? It's the conduct of the president outside Parliament. So I think that there's something to distinguish in relation to the two matters that are before the Supreme Court. And even though it is all in the context of a political tussle between the legislature and the executive, but in truth also, there is a legal issue when it comes to the Court case. And there has never been a precedent like that. And we're all interested in what the Supreme Court will say in that matter.
Let's see how things play out. And you talk about the tussle between the judiciary and the legislature and the executive.
I said I wanted to make a 1 minute submission before.
Yes, let me acknowledge the presence of Professor Bafo Agyemangua. He's a former advisor on governance at the United Nations. He's a governance expert. Is joining us on Zoom. Professor Bafo Agyemangua, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Key Point.
Good morning, and good morning to all my friends in the studio. Thanks for having me.
Great. And if you could kindly sit back a bit for me so I can see your full image. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Professor Nogeji, just a quick one, please.
Bafo, good morning. My greetings to Vida, your sister.
Good morning.
Yes. So, one thing that I wanted to submit is that policies are all over the world morally framed, the same way as governance is morally framed. So the countries that we are picking some of these things from them and that they are putting pressure, so much pressure on us, I'm talking about the LGBTQ+. I had a situation, one of my former president of a university was caught for DUI. So she was caught drunk on Saturday evening at a party. She was fired. We have some states in the US that you cannot sell alcohol on Sundays because this is even state laws. That is their values. We have a situation where timing, and a lot of things lying on oath is value that some of these countries uphold. So if we're a country, and I'm telling our leader, this is from the leadership standpoint, that we should have the values to behold, else we are lost on the way. The other thing is that the more you have responsibilities, the more you should be accountable to the people. Power actually don't belong to the executive, don't belong to the legislative or the judiciary. It belongs to we, the people.
Indeed.
So what the people want is what they have to do for us. If you become a leader and you want to do what you want, then I am surprised that you call yourself a leader. The people sent you there. Do exactly what they want for you to do. And that's how democracy works.
Fantastic, thank you. Professor Bafo Agyemangua, now this tussle, I know we've seen it, is that an impasse or a tussle, we've seen how things are played out and the positions, the entrenched positions that have been taken at some point. Focusing on what the way forward should be, what are some of the lessons should be taken from this tussle we are seeing to ensure that it strengthens and improves on our governance so as we don't get to this point going forward?
Well, thank you, Alfred. You see, just taking a cue from what the last speaker has said, it's unfortunate that we are being buffeted by countries who themselves claim to be democratic, but in many ways are not, with the double standards they play and all that. Like you said, about 13, 15 states in the United States have placed some limitations on the rights of LGBTQ. Kansas, you cannot fly the flag. Elsewhere, you cannot even utter certain words. Here we are, a sovereign nation, having our values, democratic values, yes, but there's something else to what we cherish. Culture, whether people believe we don't have any culture, because some of my intellectual friends do argue, what culture do we have? Which is very unfortunate indeed. But I'll come direct to your question. You see, those who are constitutional or lawyers arguing on the lines of what the president ought to have done, I think they technically sure they are on the right track in arguing that way. That is to say, the president stopping the submission of the bill itself seemed to be an infringement on this provision in the Constitution, where the president is obliged to receive. Then you have three options: to reject, to accept, or to ask for some kinds of amendments. But I don't think that was followed. Going forward, democracy thrives not on legalities. Let me be clear on that. Unfortunately, we have lawyers dominating our political processes, as we find in many other countries, especially in Ghana. Lawyers are dominating, so everything is subjected to legalities. Democracy thrives, of course, on the Constitution, which is itself a basic law of the land. But more than that, it also thrives on the ability of the actors to meet, consult, compromise, and make certain decisions, especially when we are faced with a very important national interest. On this particular issue and the tug of war that we have found between the legislature and the executive, this is a situation where overwhelmingly Ghanaians have endorsed something. I say overwhelmingly because if you add all the churches that have spoken on this, all the traditional leaders that have spoken on it, I don't know who else forms a base for the majority. But of course, there are also activists, intellectuals, who are also using international human rights issues to also argue their case. And that's what democracy is all about. But after we've gone through all the arguments and the people's representatives make the stand, it becomes what one may call the national interest that needs to be pursued. So while there is this kind of tug of war, I would have expected that the executive will initiate perhaps a private consultation instead of stopping the bill from being submitted, or long before even they came to a conclusion, they voted on it. There should have been some kind of private negotiations for the president, letting the legislature know the implications of what they're doing, all right? And of course, those in the legislature are Ghanaians who I presume do have the national interest at heart as their first priority. And therefore, if the executive is able to convince them, I'm sure they are Ghanaians, they will know what is good for us and what is not. That will lead to some kind of compromise, certain changes and all. That should have been the path to solving this problem, not this tit for tat show of power and that kind of stuff. That doesn't really help us. So look, like the letter that the Minister of Finance issued after the bill has been passed, that letter, all of the version became public, where they are now giving us the reasons why the bill should not be passed. This is something that has been negotiated prior to the passing for the legislature to know. And if, in fact, they saw these reasons and they think they are in the best interest of the nation, that's where we go. We are looking for what is best for the country, what the people, the majority of the people, just as we use majorities to elect presidents. The same way, in democracy, we use it. But of course, I'm also aware of instances where the executive, for some good reasons, because see, the executive get to know and see things that you and I will never know or see. So in their position, we assume that they have better insights on certain issues. That I can understand. But not when it's clear that we are being pushed by foreign interest. And this, let's be clear, we don't have to shy away from that. Just a week or so ago, a certain prominent democracy scholar was in this country saying that if this bill is not passed, we're going to lose APC, we're going to have serious consequences. But you see, if our president wants, he can talk to the nation on the implications, as people are saying, and let the people say, look, we have alternatives or we don't. Because I don't believe that the only alternative we have to maintain our dignity as a people is well received. So I'm
Yes, Prof, I do appreciate your time on this. And please stay with me. I have to go for this quick break. When I'm back, we would get into another issue that I would have you also speak on as well, because it still bothers on our daily lives. But there were a number of your messages coming through. This one from lawyer Eduji Tamaklo, who is Director of Legal of the NDC. He says, good morning, Alfred. Warm regards to your panelist. I need to correct some misconceptions regarding whether or not there was the need for a motion for abridgment of time. The above was the notice that was issued by the Registry of the Supreme Court under the heading Fixing of Date for Hearing of Application. If you read it, it says that the date will be fixed for hearing after 14 days. I think I made reference to that in all my questions to Bobby Bunsen. If a party decides to set a date earlier than the 14 days, you must apply for it by a motion for abridgment. The letter is insufficient, and letter must be copied to the other parties, and this was not done. Thank you for, it says the message with that. I think we also made reference to that on the basis of fairness, maybe not necessarily legally, that should have been done. Thank you as well from Malik Adama, sends a message from Wa, also talking about something on the same tangent, says we must all be cautious about the signals that all of this sends. And Issa Morning as well, and also Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. Thank you very much for the messages. I'll be back shortly after this quick break. We'll get into this doomsday that we are all experiencing. The Energy Minister says that if you demand a timetable, then you've got to provide one yourself. And ECG says they cannot produce a timetable because what is happening is not really their fault. We should be asking questions of GRIDCO. We'll be back shortly after this quick break.
Are you to start freedom? Are you gone? You can't stop freedom.
Go to every resident in our vibrant regions. Brace yourself for an unforgettable and transformative journey with Nana Kwame Bediako as he embarks on the groundbreaking regional listening tour. From bustling cities to the serene landscapes of Ghana, say hello to a leader who genuinely listens to your concerns, dreams, and hopes for a better community and country. A leader who is ready to get things moving again with you and by you.
Nana Kwame Bediako, Banga Sankasa, Bae, Bona, Yena Zoa, Nwanan, Oliba.
He's coming live and colored to your communities. Get ready. It's your time to be heard.
Welcome to Rehoboth West Court Oyarifa, your gateway to a comfortable life. Located between Legon and the tranquil hills of Pediasi, a place where the convenience of city life meets the peaceful embrace of nature. Here, safety, peace, credibility are assured, free from the worries of land guards and multiple patches of the same land. Oyarifa's strategic location offers you easy access everywhere. Build at your own pace and within your budget. Rehoboth West Court fast-selling lands, serenity, connectivity, community. Own a piece of land today. Call 0553 751 933 or 0206 823 524, or visit our website at www.rehobothsocialhousing.com.
This is Hot Issues, your passport to the most compelling conversations of our time. We go one-on-one with the movers and shakers, the thought leaders, and the game changers. We ask the questions that matter, and we don't back down.
Tonight on Hot Issues, I sit with the man at the center of corruption investigations,
Join me on Hot Issues here on TV3.
Hot Issues shows Sundays at 10 p.m. only on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
I'm not feeling him at all.
That is okay. He's not feeling right back.
I like you. Me, I like you. That's why I'm saying this. So it's my spec. Spec. But I'm taking you home, okay?
You hate something and you like something, and I'm both of them.
Don't mind all of them, okay? I will enter you with swag. Make you rough, right?
I'll be the best friend on your bed, okay?
Mine here. And the whole bed. And king size.
Me, I want to be my boyfriend or my husband's personal assistant, so you know what that means.
Date Rush shows every Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. Date Rush is sponsored by Heaven Black Mosquito Spray and Coil and Napa Foods.
Dewa Chop Money.
Feel Moisturizer.
Obuasi Bitters.
Close-Up Complete Fresh Protection. Geisha Moringa and Geisha Black Soap.
Deluxy Acrylic Paint.
Adonko.
Remy Spices.
Stop Cough from Ernest Chemist.
Dano Milk.
Expectations are high. 10 families mounted the stage, but only the fittest survive. Get ready to be entertained and surprised as we unveil the 8th family set to dominate the Big O Family Dance stage. With heartwarming moments and incredible performances, each family brings their unique flair to the stage. Which family will it be? Big O Family Dance, big up your mood.
Big O Family Dance Season 2 shows Saturdays at 8 p.m. on TV3.
This woman locked up in a room to go and break a key.
So where she's in a relationship with me and I can't have a boyfriend. It's more of a strategy of bringing all his girlfriend under one roof. So she comes to my room, touch me, hold my breasts. Almost all the girls in the house posted me.
This is Confessions, the groundbreaking talk show where hearts are laid bare and resolutions sought.
Just tell me, who is he?
I didn't mean to hurt you. I just couldn't resist him.
Him? Who is he?
It's my brother.
Your brother?
As the confession unfolds, we explore the depth of human emotions, address guilt, and work towards healing. I am Miss Nancy, your confidant and your companion on this journey. Here, honesty reigns supreme and judgment finds no foothold. Whether your transgressions are whispered secrets or thunderous regrets, this is your sanctuary. Join me and my resource persons. Trust me, they are wise counselors, deep spiritual people, and professionals. Confessions, the safe haven for all your secrets.
Confessions shows on Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by
MTN.
This season, 2 individuals. Bonds will be built. Love will exist. Betrayal will be served. Are you ready? The most controversial reality show hits your screen. Perfect Match Extra. 50,000 Ghana cedis at stake. If you are 20 years and above and want to find genuine love, join our private screening to be part of the show. Screening will take place at the TV3 premises. Kanda, go to forms.pmextra.tv to pay a registration fee of 500 Ghana cedis and register with your details and professional photograph of yourself. Private screening for ladies will take place on the 30th of March and the 31st of March for the gentlemen. Love, betrayal, heartbreak, and triumph. This April, witness the journey of a lifetime.
Perfect Match Extra Season 2 coming soon on TV3 and pmextra.tv.
Sponsored by
Close Up for your important oral care needs. Geisha Moringa and Geisha Black Soup for your soft and glowing skin.
Flora Tissue, Top Choco, Bell Ice.
If you are comparing 4 years, MPP administration, energy sector is 300 times better than John Mahama.
But we are still experiencing doom so.
Nobody has said we haven't. I'm just saying it's far much better than John Mahama ever did.
You do admit that there's doom so.
That is the word you used. I have never used that word. I promised you that we are going to work on it. And it's not a work that is a single event. It's a process. And we'll continue to work on it for the energy sector to become better.
Have you heard of calls for a timetable?
Ask those who want to bring it. The ECG says that there's no timetable coming. Why do you want to bring a timetable? What purpose? Why would somebody get up and wish evil or bad for the country?
Well, so that's the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh there. That why do you want to wish evil for this country? That if you're asking for a timetable, then bring one, essentially, because ECG says that there's really no need for it. Well, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, the regulator of the utility space, directed the ECG to produce a timetable based on the said maintenance works that they were going to conduct on some 630 that's transformers that ECG itself had indicated were overloaded as a result of increased demand for electricity. ECG has responded indicating that they have about 33,000 transformers. So just 630 being overloaded cannot be the reason why we have this widespread intermittent power outages, the doomsday we're experiencing across the country. It cannot be the reason why. So there must be something more than just this 630 transformers for that matter. Now we are finding out that this may largely be a financial problem because some money is needed to buy fuel to power some of the plants that we have in this country. Some $50 million, we understand, which we're going to get the details right now. And at this point, let me welcome Duncan Amoah, who is the Executive Director of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPE, and is also an energy analyst. Duncan, it's good to have you. Good morning.
Alfred, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great. And let me start this from the governance perspective because of the video I just played of the energy minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. Professor Bafo Adjumandua, now hearing this response from the energy minister, that look, if you're asking for a timetable, I mean, produce one, and also the lack of acceptance of the word doomsday because it's been politicized to the extent that when the people are experiencing a situation, because we've politicized the problems, the reality is still being denied. How does that strike you?
I'm saying you shouldn't say it.
Well, in governance, I think when such situations arise, normally we look for who is responsible so that we can hold that unit accountable. But ultimately, it is the executive, the president, who made these appointments to own up to whatever that citizens find to be unacceptable. When you hear key agencies responsible for the energy sector appearing to be contradicting themselves or not being even with the people, that is to say, lacking transparency on what really is going on. Then, in terms of governance, we all begin to wonder whether the center can no longer hold. I'm saying this because this is not a new phenomenon. Besides the fact that we experienced almost 7 years ago, and that's what really, to a large extent, led to the demise of the Mahama government in 2016. One would have thought that the next government would take a cue from that and make sure this kind of event does not occur again. But here we are, going back to it, and yet our public officials playing a political game with it. Because I'm aware of the PURC's request for the ECG to give a timetable, and the ECG's own response that it should be critical. So they are all passing the buck. And ultimately, the buck should stop on the president's desk. By now, I want to believe that the president should have called all these agencies together and give them the marching orders to ensure that the sector is stabilized. Of course, if he has done it privately, I wouldn't know, but publicly, I do not know if this has been done. And that really amazes me. Knowing too well that this issue, this problem led to the fall, at least to a large extent, fall of the previous government, I can't believe that in an election year, they are sitting and playing this kind of a blame game and making statements that are not right, appropriate for public consumption and all. That amazes me. But having said that, I think what the people want to see is a sector that is stabilized. Whether they have the competence, because I recall 7 years ago, the term incompetent became a catchword, a catchphrase for all of us. They were incompetent in doing that, incompetent in doing that. Unfortunately, 7 or 8 years later, we are witnessing the same kind of performance that brought about the word incompetent. So, in simple terms, I think where the buck stops finally should be where action should begin. In other words, I will want the president to call all these sectors together to stop their public statements that are not really helping their cause, and just give them the marching orders to do what is right for the people. Because, as I say, in governance, especially in an election year, if you do not know, if the center cannot hold, and such an important sector of our country, think of the impact on the economy. The economy is already on its knees, and anything that goes to help further kneeling of the economy, I think is not something we should pray for. So all I can say is that in terms of governance, if people are failing him, should bring them to order, ensure that the right thing is done. Otherwise, the people of Ghana naturally will show the verdict of their performance in the coming elections.
Professor Bafet, stay with me, but thank you very much for your initial thoughts on this matter. Duncan, now, you hear what ECG is saying, and then also the Public Utility Workers Union. I think 2 days ago, they issued a statement, which will be scrolling on the screen. They say that they want even the PRC to look beyond just the 630 transformers that they say have been overloaded, because they have 33 transformers. So what is happening cannot be the reason why there should be. If it's just on the basis of the 630 transformers, then there's no need for a timetable. Now, the Gridco hasn't really been speaking about it, but ECG is asking questions of Gridco, because they say that, look, if you reduce the amount of power you are giving us, it would also influence the distribution that we put out there as well. What is the real situation? What is happening?
Well, thank you, Alfred. I would rather we stick to truth than myths. I would rather we call out the issues for what they really are. I would rather we stop massaging the issues and would rather we stop just taking statements, whether you call it doomsday or not. The stark reality is that people go home to unplanned, power outages. And the sad thing is that you cannot even plan anything for your own self, especially when there's no timetable. So I have said elsewhere that the difference between the former doomsday situation and what you have now, which I term as doomcra, is that at least the doomsday bit.
Why?
Well, this is doomcra because you don't even know when it's going to go off, and you don't even know when it's going to come back on. If you had an idea, it helps. If you know that Tuesday morning your office enclave is not going to have power, you probably will plan to charge your laptop somewhere so you can get some work done if you still have to be in the office, or do out of office work remotely. Unfortunately, you are there and it just happens, boom, and it's gone.
But the ECG in their latest statement said this could be localized faults, and if you're experiencing power outages.
You see, Alfred, I'll demonstrate why they are not being candid with us. And I think that for all of us as a generality, we've also not helped them at all because we've done the picky cherry thing for too long. In 2014-2015, the Energy Ministry commissioned a certain work to be done on the power sector, especially at the height of doomsday. What can we do to make ECG a lot more viable? That report exists. Alfred, one of the conclusions of that report was that we should get a PPP, the public-private partnership, for ECG done. If you recall, at the outset of this government from 2017, they saw that report and decided to implement what infamously became known as the PDS debacle, right? Among the checklist that we should have, been sure existed was the need to do, proper selection so that the people we are actually asking to partner ECG to come in to inject some level of efficiency in the sector were coming in with at least some minimum investment. They were coming in with something that we could hold them to as and when they fail to perform. One of the checklists was that insurance or bond guarantee, which was waived off because we decided as a people and a government to do family and friends chronism, right? If you recall, one of the fallouts was that the American government through the MCA had a certain $500 million injection they were going to put out into ECG activities to make them more vibrant, more efficient. Our own corrupt practices as a people, as a government, saw to it that that investment was taken away, right? Mind you, ECG had a certain timetable that it needed to meet certain efficiency, I should call them timelines, right? So you want to reduce transmission losses or technical losses and all of them, right? You want to be able to detect how many people are plugged onto your subsystems illegally. Unfortunately, we decided that the Americans should take their money away. And when we dared them, we had no alternate plan in place, right? To find the monies elsewhere to inject into ECG. So when I saw Senior Gabi Ochredako lamenting that this seems like, somebody...
This is mysterious.
Somebody
says, in fact, we have that tweet by Gabi Ochredako. We'll put it on. It says, you kept the light on for 7 years. And then in your last year, all of this is happening.
You see, you can massage hunger up to a point, but it will expose you up to a point when your body can no longer handle it. You can massage the power sector up to a point, but I have always said the energy sector is primarily numbers driven, okay? You can decide today that, everybody should go and take free fuel if you want, but the numbers will catch up with you because people are consuming something and you are not getting the returns that you need on it. You can decide today to deny all you want that ECG is not having a load shedding program and that it is because of some faulty, transformers. That is why we are here. The truth of the matter is that you have not been able to make do your commitments with the IPPs, right? You have not been able to make do your financial commitments to WAPCO, the West African Gas Pipeline. You have not been able to inject any capital necessary to the power sector to ensure that the transformers that you are getting are probably as new as they should be. You are not even able to inject, right, money to a greater efficiency for ECG. ECG goes out there to collect money. The cash waterfall mechanism that should have been in place to ensure that, look, BUI introduced 2% to the grid, Car Power introduced 10%, this one did this, these are their invoices. Okay, I cannot be able to pay all. Car Power get 60%, you get 40%, get 80%, get... That cash waterfall mechanism arrangement is also not being followed. And Alfred, one of the most intriguing things I came across just last week is to the extent that...
Let's go back to that slide. Let's go back to the first slide. ECG, in this response to the PURC directive, said that they had complied with the order on the cash waterfall mechanism and the payment of the tariff revenues as prescribed as of the 26th of March 2024, and they attach a schedule, and SOEs have been paid. The independent power producers have also been paid their due amounts in Ghana cedis. For those IPPs that have to be paid in dollars, the Bank of Ghana is working on paying the dollar equivalent of payments due. That's the response again.
Alfred, the truth of the matter is this. We can massage the power sector all we want with grammar, but the numbers would still expose you. As we speak, the IPPs are owed in excess of 1.5 billion. I am not sure any
$1.5 billion.
Billion USD. I am not sure any business anywhere will be okay enough to continue, taking bank loans, to be able to continue supplying you the power. So some of them will go off at some point. Again, we are also not even accounting for what we collect from the people. The other intriguing thing I was about to come to that I found out is to the extent that we are, supplying close to 150 megawatts, right, to our neighboring countries, Benin and all of them, right? That amount that is realized from the power that we supply to these neighboring countries doesn't even come to ECG, cannot be reported to ECG. Yet ECG, as the off-taker from the power producers, is supposed to pay everything to the power producers. So indirectly, we create a problem in there. We find a way so that the revenue inflow stream to ECG is not all accounted for. Then again, you talk of transmission losses, right? As we speak, is about 30%. So what it means is that every $100 million worth of power, right, that is generated, transmission and technical losses alone would account for 30%. 30 million will be lost, right? We are not investing. Neither are we even accounting for the power sector properly. Unlike petroleum, I always say this. If you've been able to deregulate the petroleum sector, making sure that BDCs, you bring product, it is $1, sell for $1 at cost plus margin or markup, right? So that you don't come back to the state to say we owe. If it is the same situation with the power sector, you deregulate it through that PDS arrangement, which has now become, the infamous corrupt, special purpose vehicle that has seen your 200, 300 million Ghana cedi sitting with one of the banks, right? Which has now become a subject of litigation. When you do these things over a period, Alfred, you are simply burying your head in the sand and pretending that because you cannot see Alfred, the rest of your body, which is open to Alfred, he cannot see it. So we will continue to manage the power sector with grammar. The sad reality is that people don't go home to the grammar. They go home to power outages. They go home to darkness. The sad thing is you don't even know whether it is coming 10 o'clock, 11, 12, 1. You are there, it comes. If you are lucky. The next morning before you are out, it goes off again. You don't even know when it's going to go off, when it's going to come back. And the heat wave in the country. I would want to caution our political, office holders. Perhaps their gen sets are working, right? Perhaps they are privileged. But if you enter normal Ghanaian homes, the kind of heat that greets you, and when they need power to at least get life to a certain normalcy, we don't have the power to give them. We manage them with grammar. I think we are all to blame. We saw the trappings of this 7 years ago in 2017, 2018, PDS, at the height of all of that, we told the MCA to take away their 500 million USD. Alfred, you know how much work that could have done for all of us not to go back to Dumso? I have said, any government that takes over from this government, right, be it an MPP government or an NDC government, would suffer the same fate the John Mahama administration suffered because, one, we are not investing in the power sector. Forgetting that each single year, there's a growth of 20 to 25% that you need to plan for. We decided to play the grammar again.
That's growth in terms of the demand for electricity.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So once the demand numbers are growing and you are not planning, you are not plotting, you are not adding or injecting any new streams of generation, it will simply catch up with you. Initially, we were doing a peak of 2,300 megawatts. Now we are 3,700, hitting 4,000. So if your install capacity is 5,000 and you need a certain reserve margin, you are not going to get that reserve margin. You cannot operate at the install capacity simply because you've added not a kilowatt. And the distribution losses also continue to pile up and increase. So Alfred, beyond the grammar, beyond telling us there's nothing wrong, oh no, it's just from transformers that we are dealing with, so don't worry. It's the issue of financing. It's the issue of planning, right? It's the issue of capital injection. How much have we input into ECG's activities by way of technology? Right? Elsewhere, in the European countries, every transformer, the amount of power it receives is accounted for. Every single transformer. Technology would allow you to know when power is going waste elsewhere to be able to track and trace. Here, we don't care. We would rather go to the people, those who buy prepaid, and wipe out their credit. Sometimes we just wipe it out. Alfred, you don't do these things and be issuing statements. The reality on the ground is that, look, if you like, write all the grammar, write PhD thesis, right? The reality is that when I go home and there's no light, it is doomsday for me.
Well, the ECG says that it issued over 100 power outage notifications within the first 2 months, 2.5 months of the year, with the majority attributed to maintenance activities. So over 70% of the power outages were due to planned maintenance works.
Alfred, let me not even glorify that. If you concede issuing over 100 outage notifications, it tells you there's a lot of pressure on your load or your system, right? There's a lot of problems that would need a certain amount of capital to deal with, right? Your transformers are blowing, right? It tells you that some of them are overaged. What kind of audit have we done on them? What kind of pre-planning are we doing on them? Are we just waiting for the overaged, overused, obsolete transformer to blow so that we go and fix? Are we planning? Are we auditing them? Alfred, the whole grammar that ECG will construct, all the grammar that they would want us to now focus on Gridco. Ghanaians are saying we don't buy power from Gridco.
But you would agree that the upstream sector also has questions to answer with what is happening. At least,
Alfred,
is it not?
Are you really paying Ghana Gas for the gas you take from them? Are you paying them? Does Ghana Gas indeed have to now go for overdraft sometimes to pay their workforce?
They go for overdraft to pay their staff.
Check with Bui. We have overrun Bui to a certain extent. That Bui at peak cannot even generate half their installed capacity to you. Are we paying them? Is the cash waterfall mechanism working as it should? Exactly what are we doing with the power sector? I have said this. If you can deregulate the petroleum sector, find a way, a reasonable way to deregulate the power sector. Look, Accra West, right? Allow people with a certain capacity or muscle to bid, right? They can manage the amount of power and distribution network over there. If there are issues there, it's easier for them to handle it than ECG dealing with everything across country, except for NETCO, right? The northern.
Yes.
ECG is probably overburdened. And I think that we are also not injecting the necessary capital to help them become more efficient. So we continue to, use grammar. Alfred, that's a word.
So largely, this problem we're experiencing is a financial problem.
And it will keep recurring. Let me put on record. It will keep recurring simply because we are not addressing the problem.
Which is?
The financing of the sector.
Right.
Alfred, if you don't admit, like I have said, right, if you don't admit that it is hunger and you think it is stomach ulcer, you will be applying stomach ulcer medicine. Meanwhile, all you need is food. So until they admit to the issue and have a roundtable dialogue or stakeholder dialogue with everybody, right, to say this is where we are, these are the challenges, how do we confront them? Does it mean we need to probably add up a little on the tariff? If it is not tariff, the power we export, do we need to upscale it so that we can get more revenue to be able to cushion the IPPs here? If that revenue is even coming to ECG, should it not go straight to the IPPs who are generating the power, right? Unfortunately, 150 megawatts, right, that we export, the revenue, I am told, doesn't even get to ECG. Yet ECG is supposed to pay the IPPs for generating power. Alfred, there are challenges. If we own up to the challenges, Professor Jampo would always say, you would find a solution. But if you don't own up to the challenges and you think that grammar and beautifying the scenarios or the situation to say that it's transformers that have gone off and we are fixing, and it's, bro, we are kidding ourselves. We'll get back to this problem in July. It could get worse before the end of the year. It will get worse by next year because we are simply not finding the funding or the financing gap to mitigate whatever technical.
We should still be worried despite the release of the ECG that they've had a stable,
You see, Prof,
should we still be
just
worried?
the end of last year, this issue cropped up. There was power outages here and there. They managed it. You remember the IPPs had issued threats that beyond a certain threshold, they were going to shut down their plants.
Yes.
Finance Ministry will call the IPPs and issue them with some, assurances or comforts, right? We will come back the following month. IPPs are still asking for their monies, if not been paid to them. We are simply managing the energies or the power sector with grammar, basically. And that is why we are where we are. Until you deal with the problems structurally, until you admit that there's a financing gap between what ECG collects, right, and what we produce. Look, this is a country that is almost subventing power to the tune of 250 million USD every single month. If this is sustainable, let them admit. It's not sustainable.
Well, lawyer, I'm bringing you, because beyond the politics, really, should we, no, I'll not come to you last. Should we not accept the reality that what is happening is impacting on businesses and people in terms of the unannounced outages? Producing a timetable has become more of like a political bullet.
I don't mean to do this.
Just a quick one. Really.
Because of these power outages, the most recently commissioned refinery, Central,
yes,
has had to go off for days. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, for days. Because once the refinery is running and they don't have a very reliable backup and the power goes
on and off.
Look, you are destroying people's businesses. Give them a timetable.
Why is the timetable really
a difficult thing?
Let them plan. Bring in, let lawyer Amakwa.
Lawyer, sorry for
on this one. Counsel.
Please, if you have nothing to say about that, to say so. Because this one, the way you are quiet.
Prof, you are one. You are one.
And he says yes, sir.
You see, when it comes to power outages and things like that, it's so emotive that you have to talk, because you're addressing the whole of Ghana. And as my senior Leonard friend Atachi has said, it has no political party. It has no political colors. You see, so
he has even demanded that there should be a timetable.
Exactly. Well, that's what he's demanding. But what I'm agreeing with is the fact that it has no party colors. If your area is affected, it is not singled out. So the more we remove politics out of it and address the rare issues, the better. And you're saying we're dealing with it. We are using grammar. It is unfortunate that whilst you are taking steps to solve the problem, you must also be communicating.
True.
All right. So you're communicating it to come across as using grammar, which is not the case. The fact that this needs to be done. We made a lot of noise. All right. In 2015. I suppose you were going to play another senior of mine's message was given as response to some question. And so we made a lot of noise on that, on the back of that. So we are not absolved from those who use politics in this thing. It is now such a national issue that we shouldn't politicize it. The fact is that we have this problem. We need to take steps to solve those problems. ECG will come out because it looks like they are the low-hanging fruit on the structure.
Maybe the last end to
exactly. The chain. And that's what we know. The person coming to my house to disconnect, or if I go, I don't go to Greco, I go to ECG. All right. That is why all focus on ECG. But if you look at PRUC's own
there's the catch water flow mechanism report.
Yeah,
that's what
it says that ECG order 1 has been complied with. 1A, B, C, D, which includes a catch waterfall mechanism. The standing committee shall approve the revenue allocated. All those have been complied with. What is outstanding is 2C on what he has said. 2C, 23C, 23E, 23F. All right. And even for 2C, it says publication submitted. So they are now looking at it. So we need to be realistic about the fact that there's a problem. As we're taking steps to solve them, we need to be communicating. In fact, there's a reportage here or there on the 26th of March. One power outage was due to Gridco on a Malenburg supply point.
Yes.
And that caused a Monday power outage. So, you see, I agree with you that we have an issue, we have a problem at hand. Yes. But I also want us to be realistic about the fact that certain things happen and that triggers the power outages we face. And we need to take steps to solve them. In solving them, we are not running away from the issue. And you were saying that it will happen in July. I hope not. It will happen next year. I hope not. Lawyer. Because for anyone in the energy industry, we know the power of this concept of energy security globally. And so we should rather be positive in solving. Yes, if I go home and I don't have power and I have not, done something. There's a day I'd finished lectures and then I was told that there's no power in my area. I drove all the way to Kukumlimit for my power bank at 10. Got back at 10:30, then there was power. Exactly. You see, so it's not. So
there's a need for a timetable.
In stricto sensu, timetable like that, because at some point there was no power. Within 30 minutes, power came. So you would imagine that the timetable solved the whole problem. No, there are instances where you will need some scheduling if it's needed. There are instances where it is a localized problem. For instance, the notice that was given on the 28th says that, which is yesterday, isn't it? That says that from the national perspective, for ECG, not Greco, there's a whole value chain. For them, there's no issue. So if something happens, it's localized. In that, and they give it a number so that you communicate with your local point and they solve. I've had to call the local point in instances where we think there's power outage. I think that positive outlook towards it, bear in mind that, and as I said, there's no callous. I face it, I feel it. There are times where in my office, if I have to do something, I know power outage, I don't have a generator there. I have to file something in court. I have to look at things. There's no denying of that fact. Now, if it means that there's a broader discussion, all the value chain coming, sitting down, engaging. So we know Ghana as a nation, this is what we have. Depoliticizing it. This is what we have. What steps we need to take. In the same vein, and I'm not bringing this matter back, in the same vein where we are heavily reliant on donor agencies and whatnot to augment our budgetary requirements. And we are saying, come rain or shine, we don't want this lifestyle. And they are saying, we said, you can withhold it. Then we all understand that this is the step we take. We are proud about that. It comes with these consequences, and therefore we will not. It's not a matter of politics. It is that we have decided we want this. In the same way, if we're able to bring these matters up with this, let's draw a line and say yes, we've all done some politicking with power outages. From now, this is what. If you're talking about 1.5 billion USD,
Exactly.
all right. That is not something we could just try for.
That is debt owed the IPPs.
Yes,
See, if
I mean, that is what you are saying.
No, in fact, that's actually what it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I need, as a person sitting here, to verify personally. But
Fair
I'm
point.
not doubting
Fair
it.
point.
I'm saying that if that's the case, it is, let us draw the line. Let's depoliticize it, and let's go forward and say, these are the steps we think we have to take. If it's a whole chain, let's not lump sum everything on ECG. Yes, that's the face, that's the person we are seeing. All right, let's not lump sum everything on them. If they are speaking, let's look at the whole value chain, and then we can begin to address these things.
But Council,
long term, by putting certain things in place, not politicizing it, and not creating a doom picture.
But Council, I just wanted to make that point. In the court, not to in the court, the court not to.
In the midst of that,
see, you're talking about depoliticizing it.
Yes.
This conversation and the realities that the people are faced have been politicized so much that even accepting the reality that the people are faced with is a problem for government. That we shouldn't call it call it doomsday or something else. And so, but the realities of the people is what they're faced with. Because of the politics, there's a difficulty in even accepting that there's a problem.
Exactly.
And even having a timetable of a sort that you talk about, that there should be something of sort to guide people's lives. That is because of the politics.
Precisely my point.
That's where we are.
So let's depoliticize it and solve the problem.
But you don't accept, you're not even accepting that there's a problem.
Nobody is saying we are not. But when you go to your house, and you don't have, is it that someone accepting it or not accepting it?
Maybe those who are talking about it don't sleep in darkness.
That's not the issue. That's not the issue. You see, you're also fomenting the same politicization of it.
But
the issue is
that's the narrative.
But we cannot continue creating this narrative without looking for solutions. That's the point I'm making. We have to.
But what we want, if you don't admit there's a problem, how do you find a solution?
How do we not admit there's a problem?
Because minister when he is not.
But I just played the minister's voice to you.
Don't. He played that voice, Lord.
Don't cloud everything with the minister's voice.
But there's
a specific issue. All right, the specific issue that people are saying ECG must, and he is saying ECG is saying they don't have to issue it now. You can make an issue as to
that we should create our own timetable.
You can make an issue as to the tone, the body posture. You can make an issue out of that.
And telling us to create our own timetable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That you can.
So he's not admitting there's a problem and there's a need for a timetable.
You can make an issue with that.
We also have something to
now,
we also have something to
ECG issues, statements and notices. Let's take it. At least they are the people you see directly. True. All right. And if they are saying let's look at some other things, let's look at that rather than trying to and we've all been there trying to gain as much political capital we can get out of this. We are all doing ourselves.
Unfortunately, it is what we saw playing out in 2015, 2016.
It's also that.
Has always been.
And it's a cyclical thing, and no one benefits from that.
Professor Jampo, because this borders largely on.
You shouldn't be sermonizing like this. But
why shouldn't I be sermonizing?
No, hold on.
Am I not a Ghanaian?
You should come for this. You people shouldn't be quiet about
why should I
it.
Now you're Muslim, right?
You are. Hold on.
Sermonizing about it. Now you say we shouldn't politicize it. Oh, okay. And when it was being politicized, we didn't hear you saying they should stop politicization.
Honestly, that's all the problem.
Honestly, Alfred, Samuel Dubik Mahama, I pity him because he had started so well in building a certain public confidence in the ECG and the power sector. his determination to, as it were, go collect his light bill from people, I mean, made me feel that, look, Ghana would work with the appointment of the right people to the right places. I have a lot of respect for him, a lot of admiration for him and the hard work that he was doing. But unfortunately, what is happening now is eroding the public confidence in the hard work or in the ECG and the kinds of things that he set out to do. It's eroding the public confidence. Tomorrow, what will be your justification to go knock at the door of people demanding that they pay their light bill? So the public confidence that is being eroded worries me. But you see, let me say this. I'm doing a certain research project that so takes me out of my home to a place that is serene, that I can keep writing. And honestly, because they have a power plant, lights don't go off there. And so for some time, when people were talking about Dumsor, I thought that they were just making it was doing something too much. I mean, why are you always complaining about Dumsor? And so it went on. I've been there for some time. I don't stay in my own home, just trying to finish a certain write-up. Until recently that I visited my mother. And I was talking to her and then power went off. And I said, okay, so we sat from morning till evening. In the evening somewhere, power came and we're happy, talking. It went back. It went off again. And then it didn't come till the following morning. It came briefly and then it went off again. And so I started thinking about it. That was this what we've been experiencing and people have been talking about. And my view is that, you see, maybe me, I didn't know the negative or the impact or the effect because I'm working somewhere where power doesn't go off. But what I want to say is that, you see, when we select or we elect leaders and we ring fence them from the problems they are elected to solve, the problems do not get solved. What am I trying to say? See, the kind or caliber of people who are leading us, I'm not sure they are experiencing Dumsor. Because, I mean, for starters, everyone will have a genset that automatically comes on when power goes off. And so if you don't appreciate the problems that people feel, it becomes difficult for you to fashion out a proactive solution to the problem. You would tend to pussyfooty the problems and always trying to manage it, talking people like you're saying, talking grammar with the view to just postpone a proactive solution to it. A developing country like Ghana, in my view, must be led by people who live with the problems and who understand the problems. And so in trying to select leaders to lead us, we must be careful. Let's look at their background. What have they done before? Do they understand our problems? Do they identify with our problems? This is what we have to do in selecting people. If you want leaders who will be able to deal with Dumsor, they should be leaders who have experienced Dumsor and they continue to experience it. And so in looking at the background, we should be careful that those we are selecting understand our problem. We should also be careful about those who would deliberately be drinking calipo to symbolize identification with the problems of the masses. Because some people, let me finish. Some people would deliberately go and be drinking calipo to tell Ghanaians that, look, we identify with you. We should be careful in looking at them. Look, let me say this. You see, despite his military background and his military bravado, Rawlings feared the people. Let me tell you this. You can search. My mentor, Professor Bad Fuajimandria, is here. Despite his military bravado and his military background, Rawlings was always concerned with what the people will say. He feared the people, the voices of the people. And that's how come one of the ways he deployed in ensuring that he dealt with his fear of the people was his identification with the people. So he identified himself with the people. Okay. Unfortunately, in a supposedly superior democratic system, far, far better than Rawlings's dictatorship, we do not want to hear the voices of the people and address their concerns. We don't even want to hear the voice of the people so that we'll be able to address their concerns. So officials of states and political apparatchiks of this particular government are now instilling a certain fear and panic in the people, such that the people are now being forbidden. You see, you want to forbid the people from describing the situation in which they are going through. Now people are, I mean, yesterday somebody was telling me, hey, it's doom so bad, I'm afraid to even say it. See, now, so people are now being,
they're afraid to say it.
Made to be scared in describing what they are going through. So now they say, don't call it doom so, call it this, don't call it that. Are you the ones to detect how we describe a problem we are going through? You see, it is the height of, I don't think that it is about doom so or doom sisi or whatever. What Ghanaians want is to keep Ghana, is for Ghana to be kept switched on. Whether it is doom so or doom whatever is inconsequential to what Ghanaians want. We are looking for a Ghana that is switched on. That is it. And so for me, it is arrogance to attempt to offer explanations to doom so and the situation we face, whilst also making us think that the others who we experienced doom so under them didn't have any explanation. As for you, as for this particular regime, there are explanations as to why the light goes on and, you know, comes on, goes off and comes on. But the other regimes, they didn't have any explanation, and so we shouldn't call. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. And so I am saying that in trying to elect leaders, in trying to submit ourselves to people to lord over us, we should always be careful in being sure that these are people who have lived our problems. These are people who understand our problems. If he has not seen doom so before, see, that's a challenge. I repeat, we have the penchant for selecting people to lead us, at the same time ring fencing them or protecting them, insulating them from the very problems they are supposed to be addressing. And if we do that, then these are some of the things we have. So you would have, look, I want to be quite charitable. You know, there are certain things that popping up in my mind that I don't know. But the point is that it doesn't make sense, okay, for us as a nation to continue to experience doom so and then be offered explanations and to be forced to keep quiet about it. We don't like it, but you see, it's like we are beating you, but don't cry. If you cry, we'll beat you the more. So you are suppressing us. I think it is unfair. The minister's comments when he was asked about timetable, I am analyzing the chances of those who are expected to feature in the selection of running mates to Dr. Bawumia. I'm analyzing the chances. After listening to the minister and after reading from John Boadu that some front runners may be disappointed, I think I concluded that maybe he's no longer a front runner in the selection of who becomes a running mate. Yes, I'm saying that. Yeah,
John Boadu said.
Yes, I'm saying that. Yes, he initially, in my view, was among the key front runners. Okay, but after listening to his responses, watching his body language and the way and manner he went about, you know, his responses, and then comparing it to what John Boadu has recently said, that some front runners may be disappointed, I felt that maybe he's no longer being considered, or is no longer part of the front runners. But honestly, I mean, to be charitable, it's a nice man. To be charitable, I think that he could have been more sober in his utterances. Okay, as somebody that some people even were thinking about you, that you could possibly partner about me. He could have been more sober in his responses, and he could have shown a certain nationalism in his responses in a manner that would make people know that, oh, well, you care about the people of Ghana in addressing this particular national crisis. It's a national crisis. And so if you have the opportunity to speak to it, you should demonstrate a certain patriotism, a certain statesmanship, and a certain sobriety. That's the reason why anytime Akufo-Addo was coming to address us in our home during the COVID-19 pandemic, he said, fellow Ghanaians, you could see a certain sobriety in the way and manner he addressed us. And so you expect a minister of energy to be more sober in offering responses and not to demonstrate that boisterousness and all those. So with respect to, I think it could have been more sober in responding to this issue of national crisis. His responses, in my view, epitomized the arrogance of political power. And let me say that maybe a lot of people do not know, but when we were trying to analyze the factors that led to the electoral defeat of the the electoral outcome of the 2020 elections, you know, after our analysis, we described the MPP's performance as a victory for the party, but with a taste of defeat. The MPP's performance in the 2020 election was a victory for the party, but with a taste of defeat. And one of the factors that we identified as accounting for that kind of performance was the show of arrogance by some appointees. And I thought that I would draw attention to it, that if you are seeking to break an eight and you are confronted with questionings about a matter that has plagued us into crisis, you become sober in your response. It is important for us to also point to the fact that, you see, it is this same attitude that made the ruling party lose its major constituency, academics. Okay? Formally, if we're talking about MPP, MPP saw academics as a major part of them. Academics generally are conservatives, and then they are MPP in outlook. But this same attitude brought about the introduction of what we call a Public Universities Bill. And the way and manner they wanted, and it was under a minister, this same minister, the way and manner he wanted to force it down the throat of people, of academics, you know, and the way we fought against it brought a certain frosty relationship between academics and then this particular regime. But it was this particular problem was brought about by the same minister. And so I'm thinking that in trying to lead, one must take a second look at how you publicly respond and carry yourself in a manner that does not show arrogance. Because after all, I mean, on what basis do you want to be arrogant to Ghanaians? Power does not belong to you. We gave your regime power and they appointed you. And so why will you want to be, because of what? Because you have what that we didn't give to you. And so please, with respect, I mean, I want to be charitable. I think that those duty bearers, those people who are privileged to have received political appointment to serve us, must always think about national interest. They must always think about words that would suit our pain and our frustration when they get the opportunity to address us, particularly when we are plagued with national crisis. You cannot go there and be talking, sounding like Ghana belongs to you. Ghana does not belong to you.
Indeed. Professor Jampo, thank you. And now, let me also say that Professor Enoch Entry will have his take on this matter. Is still with us as well. Now, the last time I checked, ESLA, which was set up to defray the debt in the energy sector had accrued in excess of 10 billion Ghana cedis. Where's that money? What's happening? Why are we not able to raise from my sources some $50 million to buy fuel, to power plants? What's going on?
Well, thank you very much once again for the opportunity. I will do two things. One, I will deal with the issue of the Minister for Power, Honorable Napo, his response, because his response clearly tries to draw some parallels between the experiences that we're going through now and what he says we went through 300 times under John Dramani Mahama. It is true that under President John Dramani Mahama, we suffered considerable power outage. And that was what brought in the vocabulary of Dumso. We're all here, we're all living here. But I don't know if Napo was in this country. The problem of power outage did not start under John Dramani Mahama. I was around, and I'm sure many of you were around. This problem started under President Kufuor. If you recall, we were so desperate to try and resolve the issue that people like Reku Brobi went in and brought gensets that were later reputed to be toys, and even there were allegations that they were running on aviation fuel and all sorts of things. If you recall, it became a major national scandal that in the desperation of the government to deal with the problem, they had gone to bring us toys, some like 2 megawatt power plants and etc. And they couldn't solve the problem. They were sitting in Tema. In fact, at that time, because our major source of supply or generation was hydro, the allegation at all times was that the Akosombo Dam and Pong dams had inadequate supply of water. And I recall that in May 2007, pastors and prophets had to assemble at Akosombo to pray to God
to bring the rains.
To bring the rains so that Akosombo will be filled.
So we can get power.
So that we can get power. This was under J. Kufuor.
Yeah.
And we're suffering power outages.
Yes, I remember.
We just didn't call it Dumso. And NDC was in opposition. We didn't make it such a propaganda matter. We all admitted that it was a national problem. And how did it come about? Like he said, as a nation that is seeking to develop, as you expand, your economy expands, your power consumption needs also expands. And Rawlings had come with an ambitious program of extending electricity to all parts of the country. Unlike NPP, that came to the north and said no, they would rather subsidize kerosene prices because it was practically impossible to share the energy generated at Akosombo with the rest of the country and still be sustainable. I recall Professor Edibuahin, that was his major offer to the north. Rawlings said every village in the north must get electricity. So he embarked on the rural electrification program, expanding access. So as he expanded access, typical of us as a country, we failed to plan ahead. Because we had Akosombo, which was about 900 and something megawatts, 980 megawatt generation capacity. Then we had the World Bank also sponsor Pong, which was like a 150 or something, 160 megawatts, adding to the 900. So we just had a little over 1,000 megawatts installed capacity. And Rawlings took over in 81. And then in 82, Pong started. I get the situation. And by 83, he launched his ambitious program to extend electricity to all parts of the country. So by the time Kufuor assumed office, our demand had increased beyond the capacity of our various hydroelectric power plants. And so he quickly also sought support from the Chinese and started work on Bui. He didn't see the completion of Bui. Bui was completed under President Atamils, which added 400 megawatts. So the early days of Atamils, things were generally okay. But the days of Kufuor was fraught with serious problems of power outages. And he tried to solve it to the best of his ability. But again, it wasn't adequate. So when John came, just after Atamils' era, our demand continued to soar and our generation capacity hadn't expanded. So we're faced with the problem once again of Dumsor. Let's say generation shortfalls. And he decided to face it head on. Of course, I also believe that there was some panic reaction. I have to be, I like to be very honest about things, okay?
Indeed.
When my side makes mistakes, I say, we made mistakes.
Absolutely.
As part of the panic reaction, we oversubscribed to arrangements with, independent power producers. But it's also the uncertainty in the sector. In a sense, it could be panic reaction, but then also it can be a positive thing because you could be accumulating so much because you are looking at the future. What will be the case in 10 years' time?
So it will not be needed at the time.
Would we need all this? And then secondly, we also had the facility of the West African Power Pool, which was an arrangement where if you generated excess, you could sell to the rest of West Africa. And West Africa had agreed and started constructing the infrastructure for the distribution across the sub-region so that anyone who had excess capacity, your neighbors could rely on you. You just spoke about how Burkina is still relying on us. You talk about how Togo is relying on us. You talk about how Benin is relying on us. You talk about how we are relying to some extent on Ivory Coast. I used to be in the ECOWAS Parliament, and I go around and I see how some countries are not anywhere near where we are, and they will need such facilities as what we have the capacity to generate. So yes, you can say, oh, why did you subscribe to too much? How much is too much? Today, you just admitted that whilst today our generation capacity is about 5,000, is that okay?
Yeah,
our peak is almost 4,000. That means that even what we did, we'll soon be running short. But we didn't stop there. After subscribing to, privatization, liberalization of the sector, and then opening it up and allowing people to come in and generate, we then realized that you needed to also deal with the distribution system. And that's why we had this arrangement with America, MCA Compact 2, and said, let's invest that money in the power sector, the distribution. Because if we solve the generation and we don't deal with the distribution, we wouldn't have solved the problem. So the visionary John Dramani Mahama, who you underrate, saw the need to deal with the distribution aspect and committed Compact 2 to dealing with the distribution. So funds were secured. You came and you called the bluff of the American government. They should take their money away. You came and started us with some unprecedented scandal of giving such a strategic asset to political cronies who had absolutely no capacity to solve the problem until Ghanaians rose up in arms before you could back off. Worse still, we admitted that the problem of the sector had generated huge debts, legacy debts. We had to convince Ghanaians, you oppose the passage of the energy sector levy. And we said, look, it is essential to comprehensively, it is essential to comprehensively resolve the energy sector. If you don't have the funding, like you're talking today, if you don't have the funding, a dedicated funding source, to deal first with the legacy debts, and to create an opportunity as a backup to continue to invest in the sector until you have really cleaned up the sector where the private sector, like petroleum sector, is generating and then selling efficiently, and therefore there's full cost recovery. Then you may say, okay, energy sector levy, you are no longer needed. So please, we are abolishing energy sector levy. This was strategic thinking, excellent planning, which was being well executed by President John Dramani Mahama. You came into office based on total misrepresentation to Ghanaians that he was responsible for Dumsor. We probably failed to communicate the problem to Ghanaians, but we solved the problem. Now you have come 8 years down the line, 7 years down the line, where there is no demonstrated problem of lack of national generation capacity. There's no problem. There is internally a capacity to generate as much energy as we need. What is the problem? The problem is because you have mismanaged the finances of this country. You have squandered the monies kept in the energy sector levy accounts. You have mismanaged the dollar. So because we had the arrangements with the IPPs in dollar terms, is that okay? And at that time, the dollar was around 3 to the CD. Then today, you have the dollar 13. Mismanaged to the point where it's 13.5, 13.7, some of you say 13.75. And yet you are selling the energy to the consumer in CDs. When you take that money, you try to convert it into dollars to pay the producers. You have a big problem. You will have a big problem. You know? The truth of the matter is that some of the producers have just had it to their limit. They have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed to try and keep us living with light until it has gotten to a point where it is unsustainable for them.
I think under the cash offer mechanism, some $43 million is supposed to be paid every month.
It is, look, they just don't have the money to pay. You see, the IPPs are not talking because, like he said, they don't want to get involved in the politics. So they don't talk. But those who know what is happening in the energy sector, who are friends there, who you call and ask, but Chief, what is happening? They would say, look, talk to your people to pay us. He hasn't told you that he's old, but just say, talk to your people to pay us. So basically the problem really is that they are not being paid. And they are not being paid because the government of President Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, who claim to be financial messiahs, who could solve the problems of this country financially, have so mismanaged it that even basic electricity we can't pay for. That's what it is. So I agree with, what do they call it? What's his name? Napo, that the Dumsor of John Mahama is not the same as the Dumsor of Akufo-Addo. Because the Dumsor of John Mahama was an inevitable development. But the Dumsor of Akufo-Addo is the recklessness, the epitome of a reckless government that has destroyed all the infrastructure and opportunities for creating a stable power generation system. That has destroyed all the systems put in place to create a stable financing of the energy sector. That has exposed us with the recklessness in the management of the dollar.
So I asked about ESLA.
And so how can the Dumsor of Akufo-Addo, which is self-inflicted, be the same as the Dumsor of John Dramani Mahama, something that he inherited, had no way but to plunge into it. But like the brave man he was, he confronted it. He even fired his ministers who promised to deal with it within certain timelines and failed him, all as part of his effort to strategize and get us out of it. And by the time he left office, he had taken us out of it. That's why the first 4 years you came here boasting that we kept lights on for 4 years, and now that there are problems. How much did you generate in the 4 years that you can be boasting that you kept lights on for the 4 years? How much did you generate? How much in generation capacity did you install in the country? It was John Dramani Mahama, resolve problem. So that is the situation. So I can sympathize with my very good friend Napo, because when the truth catches up with you, sometimes you get frustrated. You don't even know what to say again.
Would you support that call for an audit of the energy sector levy?
There's a lot I can say against you know that.
The ESLA.
I refuse.
Because
there
is a call for the audit of
4 years with 7 months. I refuse that. I refuse to do the politics you are doing. You are saying that the only problem there is generation of power. Exactly. But you are saying the only problem is only generation. So once you generate, Dumsor is solved. That's what you are saying.
Listen,
You are even ignoring the whole value chain. And you're saying that because you generated up to 5,000 and you admit that there was excess. I mean, this thing we are doing, you think that is what solved the people's problem? And you think you're saying that you solved it before we came. Hey, are you sure? I'm sitting here saying that. You fired your minister who promised that if within a short time he hasn't finished, he himself will fire himself. So he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. There's nothing saying that we have to see the issue about power is transient. There's several microphones coming out. You will solve it. Do politics.
Hold on. I want Duncan to just conclude on this matter. Yes.
Lawyer, one of the things we have really failed, that has driven us to where we are
as a nation,
is the planning bit.
As a nation,
yes. I agree with that. I admit it.
The government has really failed woefully. You embarked on a program called One District, One Factory.
How are you going to power that?
You have gone around commissioning projects, right? You should understand that once these projects, these factories, once Centuo comes on board, he would need power. Once you are commissioning, cassava factories, starch factories, if every factory you commission, under the One District, One Factory, right? Planning should tell you that they will come and consume power.
You think they didn't do that?
If we did, we won't be here.
Oh, really?
We won't be here.
Really?
You see, lawyer, I would say this. Beyond the first 4 years was the need to have added something, right? Again, some of the power plants would get obsolete and old.
Thank you very much.
Then we decided also that Ameri should not sit in the Western Enclave. We should move it now to Kumasi.
Yes.
Forgetting that the gas you would need to power Ameri is not in Kumasi.
Okay.
So we shoot our own selves in the foot. We don't plan. If you want, a certain booster point, right, to ensure that whatever power you are picking from the Eastern Enclave, right, towards Nkoko or something, there's a booster point that gives you a certain stable power to distribute to the northern sector, from Ashanti to Brong-Ahafo towards the northern where NETCO doesn't cover. We could have planned a lot better.
Okay.
But lawyer, we have failed. And so times are catching up with us. And we are making excuses.
So the essential matter, so you leave, Duncan, I know you have to leave. It's a financial problem, has to be dealt with, and with proper planning.
It is not only a financial problem. There's a whole chain. We have to look at the whole chain.
But you asked for the technical issues. ECG, I talked about it. Thank you. I'll go for a quick break. When I go for a quick break, I'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
How do I look?
You look so gorgeous, Auntie.
Thank you. I hope my date feels the same. Am I not forgetting something?
Yes, obviously. Laura Mimi.
Thank you. Can I use the washroom, please?
Sure. Flora disposable handkerchief.
You obviously aren't using Flora tissues, my dear, because the Flora tissues, they're soft and easy on the skin and they leave no particles.
I hope you had a good time.
I had fun, thank you for dinner. Are you okay? Do you want to use the washroom? Yeah. Okay, fine.
Hey, broke uncle. I will tell Auntie.
Fat Chemi. I just love how it feels.
You'll levitate. Hi, baby.
Hi, Mom.
Hope you're having fun at Granny's.
Yeah, but Grandma doesn't have my favorite top chocolate spread. Hi, Mom. Mommy, please, I missed top chocolate spread on bread.
Tasty too. Made just for you.